Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Anime King, and today I'm going to be giving you part 8 of What If Naruto was personally trained by Kurama. Remember to give this one to 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also go ahead and check out the brand new episode of What If Naruto got a new training trip partner that will change everything over on Anime King 2, and enjoy that. And he also posted a brand new episode of What If Naruto was betrayed by Hagoromo, so go ahead and enjoy that guys over on Anime King 3. All links will be down in the description for you guys to enjoy. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, new, enjoy the videos on both Anime King 2, and Anime King 3. Go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. And yeah, without further ado, what is to be So, the last spot we left off, as Teiwai was having a stroll in the village as she went to the ramen shack to get something to eat. That was when she met Ino, the most annoyingest person in the world, as Ino kept on annoying her. Everywhere she went, Ino followed behind her, as Ino also dragged her to where Sasuke was, the most beautiful boy in the world, she thought, as they made their way. But Teiwai didn't see him like that at all, as his head actually looked like a duck butt. As she pointed out to Ino, as Ino actually saw it, she became red and angry at Teiwai. Sasuke muttered a small thanks towards Teiwai for saving him from not getting beaten by Orochimaru. And with that, Teiwai made her way off. As she heard the explosion, Ino following behind her. It was none other than Naruto. Ino's eyes glistened a bit as she saw him, as he was training without a shirt. As Teiwai quickly ran off, as she remembered that things aren't so good with him right now, so she didn't want to talk to him right now. As Ino ran after her, Naruto went towards the hot springs as he made his way there, when he met Jiraiya. Showing that he was a reader of the book, Jiraiya became rather obsessed with him, and he kept on bothering him and following him around, but Naruto managed to ditch him as he got out of there. So with that, Naruto headed off. The next day, as Teiwai took the opportunity to train with Naruto, it was rather strange at first, until Naruto pinned her down to the ground as he apologized for whatever he did, as she told him that it's nothing for him to apologize about, as he just wanted things back to where they were. Despite the both of them agreeing, they know that things have changed between them, and especially after what Hana had told him. Well, when a man and female get together and what happened, yes, it was rather vivid. So yeah, it was hard to look at her the same way, not to mention while sleeping in the same bed, there was urges. The month had finally passed, as it was now time for the finals, as Naruto faced off against Neji. Knowing that what the judges wanted, Naruto decided to show off all skills when it comes to the areas, and Neji was outpaced. Neji was surprised, as Naruto was outpacing him. Everyone was surprised. When the match finally came to an end, everyone ripped up their ticket that bet on Neji, as most of them had bet on him. They never knew that the Sand Genin was that strong, as Naruto was declared the winner. The other matches then went on, as Gaara made his way down there after his name was called. Sasuke took a while to show up, as Gaara was pissed off a bit that he took so long to show. In retaliation, Gaara humiliated Sasuke. Gaara showed Sasuke that they were not at the same level, as he defeated Sasuke without much effort at all. Sasuke was not even on the same level as him, as he showed him that rather quickly, as Sasuke was humiliated by the defeat, as Naruto simply smirked where he was. So with that out of the way, Naruto made his way down, as he was supposed to face off against Shino next. So yeah guys, it was basically the last part left off. You guys can switch across to the place and check it out for yourself. So what is to begin this new episode? By the time Naruto made it down to the arena floor, the crowd had died down to a mere rumbles. Yes, many people are still irritated by Sasuke's loss, as he wondered what that might mean for the last Uchiha. But he took that out of his mind as he looked towards the opponent. He was similar to Gaara, silent and stoic, yet he was confident in his abilities. Well, he had every reason to be. The Aberame clan jutsu was weird, but also impressive. He wondered how they could carry bugs that siphon chakra in your body without dying. As Hayate began the match, Shino was like Gaara in combat as well. As he didn't actually move, he stood still, while the bugs came in and took care of the fighting. As the bugs emerged from Shino, but Naruto did not move. The next item on the Chunin checklist, patience. He just stood there as the bugs swarmed out of Shino, as he got surrounded by an army of bugs. You were foolish to let yourself get surrounded like that. My insects will slowly drain your body of chakra until there is none left to take. You should forfeit now. To avoid the pain, said Shino. Naruto nodded, that smile on his face, confusing Shino a bit, wondering what he was planning. Thanks for the warning, I just want to test your bugs, to see how fast he could really drain chakra. In honesty, he could already feel the effects. Chakras being sucked out of his body despite them not being on him, they were pulling it out of his body. The effects started to pressure him a bit, but he crossed his arms, acting rather bored. The crowd was confused. After Naruto's last fight, they expected some action or a good show, but he was just standing there. To make it even worse, he was allowing his chakra to be sucked out of him. That was rather strange, as Shino knew that his bugs were working at their full capacity, and yet this guy was still standing. As a minute went by, and Naruto showed no signs of fatigue, he still stood there. Shino got confused and his bugs started to return back to him. They were full from absorbing Naruto chakra. They could not absorb anymore. How are you doing this? No one has this much chakra. Naruto turned as he smiled at Shino. Oh good, at least it's working. Honestly, you had me worried there for a moment. I thought your bugs didn't have a limit. When about half of them were gone, Naruto started to walk slowly at first. He then started to increase his speed. The bugs moved to intercept him, but they were sluggish and weighed down by siphoning so much of his chakra away. As the startled, unprepared Shino could only watch as Naruto moved closer and closer. He couldn't form a bug clone quick enough, so he dropped into his family, tied Jutsu's stance. He was uncertain about the match right now because Naruto had easily kept up with Neji. But Naruto stopped and simply looked over the arena. Shino then felt it as a kunai pressed up against his throat. As Naruto in front of him simply smiled. At least, tell me how, said Shino. I guess I could, said Naruto. Alright, for the entire month I know that I will be facing you when I won. So I started to store my chakra away in temporary seals across my body. All I did was release it. When I started to feel your bugs start to drain my chakra, they fed on my old chakra and I held on to my own. Shino had to admit that was smart. With prep time, there was a large advantage someone had over his clan. But he knew that Naruto had prepared for this. There was no one that can do this unprepared. But he will be definitely having a talk with his father later about it. Thank you for showing me a flaw in my strategy. As Naruto nodded politely as Shino raised his arm for a forfeit, the crowd was dissatisfied. Nothing exciting happened. But the Aberme clan was quite intrigued as they had watched, and the clan head had to commend the young genuine strategy. Naruto was pretty pleased with himself. Shino didn't seem that bad, so he didn't really want to hurt him, as he saw what Gaara meant. As the both of them walked out of the stadium together, Shino made his way towards his family in stance and Naruto went towards the box, knowing that his place was guaranteed in the final. As they did so, Gaara entered the arena as Lee rushed down into the arena with an excited smile on his face. And they arrived at the same moment. That was quite shocking, seeing that Gaara's sunshine down there. If Gaara was impressed, he did not show it as he started to draw sand from the gourd. He was going to use the same maneuver that he used on Sasuke. He figured if it worked, there was no use in trying something else. Lee had also removed his ankle weights earlier, as he had asked Guy, and he was given full permission. As Hayate told him to begin as Gaara started to prepare. But Lee was so much faster without his weights. In a flash of movement, Lee disappeared and reappeared at Gaara's side, much to Gaara's shock. One kick later, Gaara found himself hurtling away from the protectiveness of his sand. The gourd on his back broke down into sand to protect him, so he wouldn't slam into the wall. Even so, he created a nasty trench while going on. Before he could even get up, Lee foot connected in him again, as it sent him sailing. But it didn't stop there as Lee kept on springing off the floor, managing to land a deadly kick on Gaara each time. It was happening too fast for Gaara to even process, as Lee appeared and wrapped him up in bandages. Front load it, he said as he came down, as Gaara was brutally smashed in the ground, as Lee leaped away at the last moment to protect himself. People groaned in the stands as a lot of them had bet a lot of money on Gaara as they watched him unmoving in the crater. Lee looked up towards his sensei with a bright smile. His smile was quickly turned into pain as a whip of sand smashed into his side and launched him away. The people looked to see Gaara had got up. out of pure sand, as it seems that the Gaara that Lee was fighting wasn't actually real, as Gaara rises out of the ground like he was there all the time. The body that was in the crater suddenly broke down into nothing but sand and rejoined the rest of the sand around him that was floating. Now that Gaara knew how fast Lee could travel, he was going to let the boy get the upper hand once again. He sent out tentacles of sand that smash in the ground, each one strong enough to create small tremors. He normally don't let his emotion get the better of him in combat, but if it wasn't for a sand clone, then he would have actually got hurt by Lee's attack. Lee, on the other hand, now found himself dodging as he twists and turns, leaping away as the sand was smashing down. He managed to dodge each and every one of them, but as they backed him into a corner, he was finding it really difficult to escape. Soon that entire side of the stadium was covered in dust as Gaara kept the attack going, smashing and smashing. Finally he stopped, sensing no more movement under the dust. Gaara stayed where he was, feeling out for any signs of movement under the dust, keeping his eyes keen open. He didn't even look tired as the sand came back towards him. His arms were folded on his chest as the dust didn't clear away to show nothing. Lee was nowhere to be seen in that side of the arena. In fact, it looked like he had vanished completely away from the stadium. Gaara cocked an eyebrow and curious to where his opponent had vanished. So far, Lee has not used ninjutsu or genjutsu, so they were quite surprised how he vanished without a trace. Their question was answered when everyone heard a whistle pierce through the silence. Severe, a small dot appeared. It was above the stadium, coming down at tremendous speed. Leaf, as the dot started to fall fast. Hurricane, as Lee compacted in the stadium. Boom! It was like a meteor had dropped down as the ground had spread out like a crater had been formed, a rather large one. In the center of that crater stood a panting Lee, his eyes. There were no more pupils. They were completely white and his skin had turned completely red, as his clothes was torn up badly because of the attack as some of them had hit him. After a moment, Gaara rose from the ground. The dirt and dust had covered him to the point of near invisibility. He looked surprised by the attack. Suddenly, fragments of his own skin started to fall off his body. It was his shell that he used to protect his real body underneath. The sand armor fell off his body as it was too badly damaged. He was lucky that it took a few seconds for Lee to see that he got back up as he created sand clones from the ground. It took some of his reserve to do it, as he created 50 of them. Lee saw them as he blurred around the stadium. Incredible speed that took out Gaara clones rather quickly. But the more he destroyed, the more Gaara would create. They didn't actually do anything though. They just stand around waiting, as they were pulverized by Lee, fighting style. Gaara used them as a distraction to retreat from Lee. Intense speed for him to back away and did what he really wanted to do, as Lee kept on speeding around the arena, smashing clones after clones, not even taking a second to slow down, crushing them. As Gaara started draining sand in the earth as he closed his eyes, as he could feel the vibration, as he took a breath. Imperial Sand Net, he said. 1,000 rings and sand burst from the stadium all over until the place was crisscross. Lines spreading out everywhere that was made from sand. It was like razor points. Lee was stopped in his tracks. He couldn't even move a muscle or wrist, his muscles getting sliced. Lee actually smiled when he realized the only part of his body he could move was his arms, so he could forfeit. Gaara narrowed his eyes as the sand started to move closer to him as he felt it rubbing against his skin. He raised his arm and forfeit before Gaara decided to take the dark away for him to win the match. The crowd was left stunned and speechless at the sheer amount of power each of them had given. Naruto too was shocked. He realized that Gaara has been working on something for the past month, but he never expected anything of this caliber. With a gulp, he thought about what other attacks his friend might be holding back from him to prepare for their fight, as he realized that moment had arrived as Lee was walked out of the arena by his sensei, as he jumped out of the box and landed in the arena. As he looked across at his friend with a smile on his face, thinking about their spars back in the past. Many people didn't know how this match will turn out, but many of them were going towards Gaara, seeing what he just did to Lee. But some of them were not underestimating the blonde kid. They were given a brief 5 minutes for Gaara to get some rest, but Shikaku was already taking care of his lost chakra. Both boys smirked as they looked at one another. Even they didn't know how this fight will turn out. They had been fighting since they were 8 years old. When one got the upper hand, the other one would simply turn the tables. As Naruto produced a set of lengthened kunai from his sleeves, as he pumped wind chakra into them, One held out in front of him and one was held behind him. He considered bringing out his favorite technique, but yet he didn't want to bring it out in front of these people. There would be too much questions for later on. But he knew Gaara more than anyone else. Rushing Gaara, yes, that was his weakness. To get in close. As Naruto dropped into a low crouch when suddenly, feathers start to fall from the sky. As you watch it swaying back in front, it looks so soft. As it swayed back in front, his eyes start to get a bit daisy. All around the stadium, the people that didn't recognize the Genjutsu start to drift off into sleep. Something exploded inside the Hokage's box. As ninjas start to show themselves out of the crowd. As they were wearing a musical note on their headband from the hidden zone. Gaara stepped forward. His friend was really bad at Genjutsu. As he snapped him out of it. As Naruto looked around. As he saw Soul Ninja fighting Konoha Ninja. And there was all the knowledge that he needed. He was about to help until he noticed the purple barrier. He shot forward Gaara and Teiwaya, having trouble keeping up with him as he leaped like a dog. Jumping from building to building until he landed on top of a large building where he saw 3 Anvu standing there. What's happening? One of the Anvu turned to them. He was wearing a mask that gave him the appearance like a rat. The Hokage is currently engaging with Orochimaru of the Sannin behind this barrier. We are unable to breach and must trust the Hokage can handle the situation. Naruto cursed under his breath. He knew some Fujutsu, but he couldn't call himself a master. If the Anvu couldn't do anything, then he surely could not. We were instructed by the Sand Village to offer our aid in case of emergency. The Anvu looked over the 3, his eyes narrowed under his mask in suspicion. However, right now they couldn't afford to be picky with their help, so he nodded. Fine, there's nothing you can do here. Go help the other shinobi repel the sound attacking from the outside. As Naruto nodded as he moved off, he paused as he looked back to see Sarutobi going toe-to-toe with Orochimaru. Come on, old man, I know you can beat him. That was all he had time to see as they round the corner and enter into a war zone. As Gaara walked, he simply made his way his sand, sweeping through enemy ninjas like they were nothing but rubbish as he was sweeping them away. Kunai's shurikens attacks were thrown towards him, but his stand blocked each and every one of them without much effort on his part. His difficulty was telling friends from foes. Sometimes it was difficult to focus on stone shinobis when the place was so packed. As Gaara's sanding lashed out, as it wrapped around a few kids who didn't have enough time to evacuate, as it protected them from harm. As he was walking through the battle to bring them to some Konoha shinobi who can lead them to the bunkers. As Naruto was knocking down sound ninjas after sound ninjas, they didn't stand a chance. 10 of them tried to group up on him, but he brought them down as they started attacking with ferocity, but Naruto attacked back with same ferocity. Teiwaya's fingers raced across her flute as she played, as she was moving through the army like a swift angel of death, as she was currently with Tenten, Shino, and Lee. As they were helping her, any stragglers that got out of her genjutsu, they took care of. She had been annoyed with Lee earlier for what he had did, but he managed to save her from a rather bulky man who would get into her blind spot and try to kill her with a kunai. Meanwhile, this is not how I'm gonna die, said Naruto. As he was currently in a slimy, slippery prison, he had attacked the snake that was destroying the wall by leaping at it, and it ended up swallowing him. As he slashed with a wind-infused kunai, but the walls inside was like rubber as he simply bounced back. He couldn't pull his arm back enough to get enough leverage, and when he did, he just got blood sprayed all over him. A thought came to his mind. Multi should have cloned jutsu, he said. As Naruto had to cough as some of the gut got inside his mouth. Outside, the people started to battle the snake saw. The thing paused for a moment and it started to swell. It started to swell until it exploded as snake gut and blood was sent everywhere as 100 Naruto came flying out of it. The real Naruto was covered in slime and snake guts. As the Konoha ninja started to get the upper hand. After a while, the retreat was called as Orochimaru started to fled. The Sound Shinobi started to flee as well, but some of them were being captured or cut down by Konoha Shinobis. As Naruto looked towards the roof where he saw a massive forest on top of the roof, Naruto made his way looking for his teammate. As he spotted Teiwaya first, as the both of them located Gaara, he still had a few kids with him that felt that they were safer for the Sandman than at the shelters. He held back his laugh for their sake, but he will definitely, talk about that later when he saw Gaara, and he was, holding on to all the kids that were clutching onto him as well. They had to make jokes. If they couldn't cope with things that were going on around them, after all, dead shinobis littered the streets from Sound to Konoha alike. The snakes had come through the village and caused massive destruction. Houses, shops, they were all reduced to rubble and dust. The walls didn't look that much better, as the hyenas used their eyes to help people. While in the heat of battle, Naruto had barely noticed all the destruction. But now that it was over, well, there was nothing else to look at. Time skip. It was a relief when he finally stepped out of the shower. After many showers, all the gunk was off him. The Inuzaka compound had been unscathed because of its location. As Naruto went in bed with Heiwa and wrapped his arms around her, using her as a comfort, he felt her slight shivers despite the tough facade she put up. They saw their fair share of death and bloodshed today. As he didn't know for himself what he would ever do if Heiwa was hurt, or worse, even killed. He just couldn't think of that possibility. Time skip. Rain poured down. As Naruto looked around, there was a lot of people here. Yes, a lot. There was a single coffin that was there with a photo. It was none other than the third Hokage himself. As the rain had been pouring non-stop, it was like the entire village, or the world itself, was crying. It was a photo from the first day of him being Hokage, with his arm around his wife's waist, with a big smile on his face, as he had on the robes, ready to take on the world. It wasn't supposed to be a day of mourning, but a day of remembering and celebration of the Hokage, of heroes and time, leading the village. But that didn't make the mood any better as people cried, loudly and openly, for their lost leader, as Naruto wouldn't allow himself to cry. It was unfitting of a shinobi, but the tidal wave of emotion was threatening to break through. As Hiruzen was the first person to ever treat him with kindness. He was the first person to ever see him as a human, to not treat him like a beast or an animal. He was his first precious person in this world, and nothing will ever change that. It was like a never-ending moment to stand here. That might have sounded bad, but as people talk about stories from Hiruzen's life, it just made the atmosphere and Naruto feel more sad, as it made Naruto remember that one time the Hokage made him wear the robes and the hat. That had been a precious day for him. It brought a smile to his face, but it quickly vanished as the rain started to pour down even more. Naruto had difficulty laying down the white flower to place on Hiruzen's grave. He reached out his hand, but the damn thing just wouldn't drop. As he looked at the photo, hoping that this was just a bad nightmare and you wake up soon enough to see the old man one last time. He felt something clutch his hand as he turned to see Teiwaya, as he finally let the flower drop, as Teiwaya led him away. As he was walking back, no one noticed a tear that simply ran down his cheek. It blended in with the rain after all, so no one will ever notice. Time skip. It has been 3 days. Both Teiwaya and Gaara had came to see him, but neither of them had, well, tried to make him move, as he was just there at a lake looking out into the calm, peaceful water. They knew that when he was ready, he would start training again. When he was ready, they would give him time. He didn't say much, but they knew that he appreciated the company. Teiwaya would just come there and sit down, not saying much. She just sit with him. Surprisingly, it was Gaara who was the most talkative one. He came to tell Naruto about the kids that has been following him around ever since the invasion. He had actually get Naruto to laugh yesterday, the first real sign of his recovery. Like always, he smelled the newcomer before they arrived, as it was the envoy that cleared his throat. As Naruto simply didn't acknowledge the man at all, he made his way to Naruto cautiously, as the envoys knew about him being the container after all. I have been instructed by the temporary council that is consisting of Koharu and Homura to talk about your current allegiances. Naruto turned his head slightly to look at the wolf. Mass envoy. What about them? Said Naruto. The envoy remained impassive despite the obvious venom in his words. They wanted to ask about the reason about your headband. That made Naruto simply raise the eyebrow. The reason I don't carry the sand symbol. The envoy nodded. None of their business, said Naruto. They also asked me to inquire as to what her intentions are now. As Naruto finally stood up, he's been in that spot for the past 3 days, already feeling the stiffness of his muscles. My intentions? I intend to do what the Sandcones asked me to do. Help our allies in the emergency situation. I was informed by the council if that was the case, you were to report to the tower to be assigned into a temporary team with a shinobi from our village. And my teammate, said Naruto, had been similarly informed, the man said. And with that he vanished in Shanshin. Time skip. What? Anko's loud scream caused Homura to wince slightly as he twists a finger in his ear. I thought this situation would be quite clear, Miss Mirashi. Is there something that you do not understand? He said. As he had a headache at the moment, but he kept his voice level. He was starting to have more respect for his teammate, given the fact that him and, Koharu was stuck with the position of Hokage for the moment. And if this is what Hiruzen go through all the time, damn, it was a lot. Yeah, tell me again why I'm getting stuck with a bunch of snot-nosed Jennings. Homura sighed for the 5th time. The chair was comfy, but sitting here talking with Anko, it was getting rather annoying. Like I already said, Miss Mirashi. Stop calling me that, said Anko, as Homura sighed for the 6th time. Like I already said, Anko, the village need all the available resources acting at full strength. While we appreciate your abilities in cover operations, we need to focus on those missions that actually get noticed. If other nations catch on to the fact that we're in a weakened position, they will take advantage of that. Yeah, but why me? There are tons of other Jonis that doesn't have squads. Homura leaned back in the chair, his fingers twined together, and each will be getting important missions, I assure you. Anko didn't seem pleased at all, but before she could retort, he cut her off. Anko, there's really nothing you can do about this. When a new Hokage is instated, you can take it up with them. Until then, the village is under mine and Koharu direction, and I assure you, Anko, she will back up what I have to say. Anko's argument died on the tip of her tongue as she leaned back. At least tell me who the little kids are. Oh, I think you met them before. Time skip, as Naruto walked on the training ground flanked by his 2 friends. As they had all arrived to the Hokage's office and told that they will meet their new instructor here. Naruto wanted to ask who they will get, but other from Kakashi and the proctor for the exam, he didn't really know any of the Jonin in the village that much. As both Teiwa and Gaara were happy that he was moving around more. But he was quieter, having lost a parental figure. As they could understand Gaara lost his father and Teiwa losing an old woman from her village that taught her how to play the flute. As they calmly waited, Teiwa was getting pissed off as 15 minutes passed, no one arrived. As Naruto was flicking through the orange book, Gaara had his sand twirling around him. When 15 minutes turned to 30, Teiwa started to pace, and Naruto could swear that he could see this steam pouring out of her ears. He just hoped that your sensei can get out of genjutsu, or they would be, placed on their one for a couple of hours. Finally, they heard someone approach from the forest. It was a large snake that slipped in between the 3 of them. Sup, the snake said. It was rather large. Yes, probably a foot or 2 over them, and it looked rather intimidating. It had green skin. You're our sensei? No, child. The snake hung its head, as it looked like it was rather embarrassed. I'm here to introduce her. It looked back into the forest, while its tongue flickered in and out. It gave a hiss that sounded like a sigh, before it rose its head in pride and called out. Introducing the one and only Queen of Snakes, the mistress of Danko, Anko Mirashi, he said. The snake simply slumped over before poofing away, looking rather irritated as it did. The training ground then erupted into a miniature hurricane as she appeared, surrounded by a lot of leaves. Her hands were on her hips as she gave them a nice sky pose. As Anko finally opened her eyes, expecting to see their faces in awe and wonder. But what she got was the blonde reading his book, the other one messing with his sand, and the redhead looking at her like she wanted to murder her. You're half an hour late, said Teiwa. Anko glared back at her the same way. Hey, it's not like I'm Kakashi or something. A great wonderful introduction like that requires a lot of planning, you know? As she looked towards the blonde, Alicia appreciated the pranker side, but she saw him simply tuck the page that he was reading and simply put it back in his pouch and got up. She grumbled, well, whatever. I'm your new Jonin instructor. Here, as she tossed all of them a Chunin flap jacket. Congratulations, you're all officially Chunin rank, she said. All of us? It was Teiwa that asked the question and she was confused that even she had been promoted. Anko grumbled as she was still angry that no one liked her entrance. Yeah, something about you fighting during the invasion or something like that. Don't really care. She muttered the last part to herself. Teiwa did not complain as she was just happy she wouldn't have to take the exam in the next 6 months. What about Hana? Naruto asked. Anko looked towards Naruto with irritation. Damn you, kid. Why do you have to ruin our introductions? Come on out, Hannah. They knew. As they heard rustling in the bushes. What about the fireworks? Anko placed a hand to her forehead as she looked like she wanted to kick something. Leave the fireworks, there's no point now. As Anko stood there as Hannah, sunshine beside her. I told you they would find me, said Hannah. As Anko turned towards her, her eyebrow twitching. You could have told me that the kid had some super sense of smell. Hannah simply shrugged as Anko lowered her head in defeat. Alright, well I'm not your full-time instructor, seeing that I'm only a Takabitsa Jonin. So is Hannah. That is why we're gonna take it in turns. As the group nodded, it was then that Anko turned towards Naruto, a curious look in her eye now. Okay, pleasantries are over. We all know each other, blah blah blah. First thing first, why are you under genjutsu? That had been bugging her ever since the Forest of Death. Naruto seemed surprised, but not completely shocked. Teiwai had assured him that the genjutsu was tough, but most Jonins, the advanced ones, especially some that deal with the genjutsu era, would be able to break it. Naruto turned towards Gaara. He simply shrugged, as he then turned towards Teiwai. Shrug as well. Well, okay, said Naruto. I guess it's best if I just show you. Both of them nodded as they were now curious to see what he was hiding. He reached his hand up as he went into the tiger seal. Release! His body shimmered for a moment as his claws were now visible. His ears were also free and twitched. His whisker marks became more deeper and defined. His canines even poke out of his mouth while he had them closed. But the most important thing was the three tails that was behind him. Anko and Hannah just looked transfixed by the sight, looking at his appearance. He briefly wondered if this was a bad idea, as he imagined being dragged off to a Anvu jail. Both girls spoke at the same time. That the both of them stepped forward is amazing! He was surprised at the reaction. Anko rushed forward as he was rather close to him, inspecting his whisker marks, as he felt something brush on his tails, as he turned to see Hannah looking at them. Wow, no wonder you use a 4-legged taijutsu style. These must provide a great balance. Can you feel things with these whiskers? Hey, how do you stop me from standing on your tail? How hard are your claws? Why 3 tails? Do you have them on your feet as well? The question just kept on coming. I wonder what a hickey would feel like from someone with fans, said Anko. As Naruto was caught off guard by the last questions, Anko grabbed one of his tail and rubbed it against her cheek. Soft, she said. Naruto spun in surprise and pulled his tail away, as Anko pouted like a small child. She looked so adorable, he felt like he wanted to give her back, but he shook his head no of it, as he mumbled something about easily being controlled by girls. The both of them stood there looking at him, as he realized he didn't answer any of their questions. Yes, I can feel things with the whiskers. I tucked them in my pants to stop people from standing on them. I haven't found anything that break my claws yet, and yes, they're on my feet as well. Both of them seemed pleased by the answers, but Hannah frowned as he missed one of them. But why are there 3 of them? He sighed as he looked towards his friends with pleaded looks. They simply shrugged as they couldn't really offer much. It showed how much of the Kyuubi power I can safely use. As he expected, they all come to be, well, vicious. To be called demon, monster, but they were only looking at him more curiously. Before any more awkward situation came, he pointed towards Gaara. Hey, he's a Shinjuki too. Interrogate him as well. The 2 of them looked at Gaara. Anko stepping forward the sand, and his gourd started to twitch a bit. So why don't you look at that as well? Anko asked. Gaara's eyes narrowed into a glare. Shikaku and I don't have a great dialogue, he left it at that, as he wouldn't say anything else about the topic. As Anko backed off, well, it seems like he wasn't a nice one. She then turned back to Naruto. Alright, fuzzball. You might want to cover up again. Some of the villagers won't be as understanding as we are. Naruto nodded as he already knew that, as he added back the genjutsu as Teiwai strengthened it. As Anko looked over them once they were done. Alright, now that it's all over, you're all moving in with me, she said. They all looked at her. Even Gaara was surprised by that. Why? We are to live with Hannah. Anko smiled at them, a devilish grin. Let's just say I like to start training early, and the Inusaku compound's a bit too far away for my taste. Hannah looked at her in irritation, but she saw what she had planned, so she made her way and wrapped her arms around Naruto, as she pouted cutely. Aw, is Naruto gonna miss me, she said. Naruto instantly got red. It was then that Anko noticed Teiwaya shooting looks at Hannah, looks that she knew very well. She filed that for information to deal with later, as Hannah walked back over leaving a fluster Naruto behind. Alright, next thing first, I was told that you guys need to wear this, she said, as she brought out 3 Konoha headbands. No, said Gaara. My loyalty is and will always be to the Hidden Sand. She couldn't really hold against him. After all, he was the son of the Kazekage. She turned towards Teiwaya. No, said Teiwaya. Any particular reason? Asked Anko. My loyalty isn't to any village, Teiwaya said. Anko narrowed her gaze. It sounded like what a mercenary would say, or a missing. It is the shithead over there, said Teiwaya. As everyone took a double take and glanced towards Naruto, as Teiwaya said that proudly. Where he goes, I go, she said. Well, Fuzzball, you seem to be the leader here. So let me guess, you're not going to take the forehead protector either. He shook his head no. Not for the reason you might think though, as he removed the headband that he was wearing and brought it down. As he flipped, there was a metal plate over it to show the faded leaf symbol on the other side. Where did you get that? When I left the village, I sneaked into the academy and took one. I never thought I'll be coming back to explain that though. Anko wasn't here when he left. She was in sea country. That thought made her reach up to her neck, where the curse mark was. It was then that Naruto remembered something that Kakashi had told him a month ago. Oh, Kakashi told us to ask you about the curse mark from Orochimaru. Anko head snapped so fast, it looked like he was about to snap off. Why would you want to know about them? She said. Her hand was still on her neck, as Teiwaya noticed the action because she did the same thing. You have one too, don't you? Teiwaya asked. Anko turned. Wait, 2? She said. As Teiwaya nodded, as she pulled back her shirt just enough so that Anko could see the mark. She did the same, showing the pattern, as she looked sadly down towards Teiwaya. But Teiwaya had a determined look on her face. I don't need your pity. I'm getting this crap off my neck. Off to the side, Naruto nodded, as it made Anko smile. Well, when you do that, let me know, will you? As she straightened back up. Well, no point talking about the pedo and his word ink fetish anymore. It made Teiwaya chuckle a bit. Well, come on. Might as well get packed and move into my place. As Anko's place was rather large, it turns out that she received the same paycheck that Naruto did while he was living here. Well, they didn't exactly know why and she did not tell, but it seemed like it was a sore topic, so, well, they dropped it. Anko looked towards Teiwaya, rather amused, as Teiwaya started to put her things in Naruto's room, as Naruto thought that it would be the same relationship that they had in the sand. But she didn't really give a damn anymore, as she packed her things in there as well. As Naruto tried to take some of Anko Dango out of the pantry, as she ended up chasing him around the entire apartment. It wasn't even a playful chase. She had a kuna and her eyes were red. She wanted to kill him, as they realized they should never, ever mess with her Dango at all. Much to Teiwaya's annoyance, as she actually liked Dango. The two of them, well, didn't really like each other that much. Well, it looked that way. Despite them having so much in common, it was rather weird. They stayed up for a while, mostly talking. Anko was supposed to do some idiotic exercise, team building, where they asked each other their likes and their dislikes and all that. But they knew each other since they were kids, so she didn't have to bother with that. But she had to ask, so how long have you two been together? As she was looking right at Naruto and Teiwaya when she said it. But the word was lost in the blonde. What? Me and Teiwaya? I found her while I was 7. A few weeks after I left the village. No, said Anko. I mean, how long have you two been together? She said. As Naruto simply looked confused, Teiwaya turned red. We aren't together, she said. But you two sleep together, said Anko, confused. We sleep in the same bed. You have no idea how warm shithead over there is. As Anko raised the eyebrow at that. Oh really? Maybe I'll try him out sometime. Naruto was rather dumb in certain situations because he still had no clue what the hell they were talking about. Gaara turned in, saying that there was too much excitement in one day after Naruto has been inactive for so long. As Anko retired, warning that if anyone entered a room without permission, would meet a bloody and swift end. She was looking at Naruto when she said that, as he had no idea what she was talking about. Why would he come to wake her if she told him that? As both Naruto and Teiwaya, they wrapped their arms around each other as they fell asleep. Anko slowly came inside, as flashes could be seen, as she walked out with a smile on her face. Not together, my ass, she said. Time skip. Okay, come at me, kid, Anko said. as the both of them were a good distance away from each other in a large field, the farthest training ground away from the village. It had been a week since they became this team, and this was the first time he was sparring with her. Anko was different from Baki completely. While Baki made them do their own things most of the time, she took on a more hands-on training. You're going to regret letting me fight you, Anko-sensei. Anko simply grinned viciously. As Naruto went down on all fours and sprang forward, Anko went through hand sign. Hidden shadow sling, she said. But Naruto dodged as he appeared behind her and swung his foot. But Anko dodged under his kick as she lashed out with more snakes. As the snakes came towards Naruto quickly, he flashed through hand signs fast. Wind style. Shielding blades jutsu. Large, spinning blades made from wind appear as he sliced up the snakes. He had to dodge a hail of kunai that came towards him. As he launched himself to where he smelled Anko, her scent of dango, he could easily pick her out. As he bounced right on her trench coat. As he thought that he wasn't mistaken, but Anko had took off her coat and placed it there for him to smell and find it. As a kunai pressed up against his throat. You're fast, kid. I'll give you that. But this is a muscle you need to be exercising. As she knocked him on the head. I'll keep that in mind, Anko-sensei. Poof, he was gone. It was a clone as Anko waved the smoke out of the air. Before Naruto could use that smoke screen to his advantage, she sank into the ground, leaving a normal clone in her place. As the real Naruto watched him a tree with interest. Come out of the ground, Anko-sensei. You might get your clothes muddy. As he used a neat trick to throw his voice, a trick that Teiwaya taught him, as it would sound like he was on the other side of the clearing. Anko poked her head just out a little, looking the option to wonder why he would give away his position. He then tossed kunais towards her. She tried to stink back down, but one of the kunai transformed back into a clone and grabbed her by the ear. As he threw her across the clearing, she flipped as she landed gracefully on the trunk of a tree. She speeded through hand sign as fast as possible. Fire release. Dragon flame jutsu, she said. Naruto looked turning confused and he was sure that jutsu needs some conductor or something like that. He then noticed shimmering wire as he followed the wire towards its source. There was an entire network of ninja wires surrounded in all over the training field, connected together as the fire started to spread all across the field. As Naruto had to jump out of the tree that he was in, as he went through handstand rather quickly. Wind style, great wind breakthrough. Anko had to leap away as her technique was turned against her, the fire exploding outwards. She threw scent bombs that were coated and beat up poison. As Naruto dodged, but some of them nicked into him as she kept on throwing them. As he could feel the poison coating the resistance, but the Kyuubi started to take care of it. As Anko dropped from the sky and wrapped her arm around him as she placed a kunai right in front of him at a rather special place for him to give up. Okay, Uncle-sensei, you got me, said Naruto. As he knew, one twitch from her hand and you wouldn't be having any kids in the future if what Hannah said was true. Nice job, kid. Maybe one day you can be as good as me. As she pushed him a bit, making him fall over as she sat right on his chest, picking at her nails with the kunai. But probably not. As Naruto simply blushed, Anko wore a very short skirt and he could feel something soft where she was sitting on his stomach. Anko noticed that as she rubbed her body back in front a bit. As she leaned down, do you like me sitting here, kid? She asked. As she licked his ear for good measure, as she saw him turn beet red, she got up with a laugh. As Anko went over and picked up her trench coat, throwing it around her shoulder as something fly out of the pocket. As Naruto caught it, it was an orange book. As a smirk came on his face, Anko rushed over as she grabbed it. As she quickly placed it back in her pocket this time, buttoning it back up. If you tell anyone about this, I'll make sure a few of my scaly friends visit you in your sleep. Despite the threat, he simply laughed. Of course, Uncle-sensei, he said, as he flipped off the ground. So, how many times have you read it, Naruto asked? Anko held her head down as a rain cloud appeared above her. 6, she whispered, not very proud of herself at the moment. As Naruto laughed, he never expected a woman, except for Teiwaya, to actually read it. Time skip. A week later, as both of them looked a bit tired from their spar with Anko, Teiwaya had to focus on her taijutsu and ninjutsu, seeing that her weakness was she was too dependent on her genjutsu. Gaara merely focused on refining and controlling his hand, something Hannah and Anko was perfectly fine with. Seeing what they saw him did with it on the first hand, they knew that he just needed to refine his ability more, because he was already damn good at that hand. Recently, he has been trying to do his father techniques, but it was rather difficult, than how to handle his sand, but he was persevering a bit as he was able to levitate the fine gold dust to a small degree, as Naruto had told him that he should just integrate it with his own technique, as the magnet release was rather hard to use, but when he mixed it with his own technique it get rather, well, less harder. Well, if he could say that, Naruto was just happy for him, while his thing was probably the hardest, as Hana had focused on Teiwaya, while Gaara worked on his own. Naruto was left with his own personal trainer, and that was Anko. And let's just say she was worse than that slave driver, and it only got worse when she found out about the Shadow Clone training. Naruto knew of the benefits, but what most people did not understand was the drawbacks. It was a reason why the multi-Shadow Clone jutsu was a Kenjutsu. The influx from having so many clones dispel was enough to drive someone rather insane. As it was, it gave Naruto a migraine that made him rather pissed off and angry at everything and everyone, until it cleared away some hours later. Anko merely told him that training wasn't supposed to be enjoyable, and that he was lucky that he could endure something like this. In the end, they reached a compromise that he would only do half of his training this way, so that would limit the amount of headaches to just a dull throb. The only other drawbacks was clones couldn't train his body, so while they were off practicing ninjutsu or taijutsu techniques, he was stuck working on his body. Normally, he wouldn't mind that as he enjoyed exercises, but not when you have a purple hair woman sitting on your back, enjoying yourself eating dango while you do push-ups, and on your back while you run, and do pull-ups. And Teiwaya had it hard with Hana as well. Despite her sweet personality on the outside, she was a sadist, like Anko. That is why the two were such close friends. Teiwaya had a rather knock to underestimate people, and didn't show her full power until it was rather too late. So Hana was literally beating that out of her in their intense training spars. But despite that, they made good senseis. As Naruto and Teiwaya didn't care about that though, as they were currently glaring at the two of them. The week has been nothing but hell. But today, Anko brought them out here for a treat. Alright kids, I bet you're wondering why we're not going by the normal routine today, Anko said. What do you know about killer intent, she asked. As she smirked, well you're in luck, my sensei pretty much write the book on that. And now, I'll hand that secret down to you. They heard the way she said sensei with so much hate. Suddenly they felt a dread feeling wash over them with so much hate. Looking into Anko's eyes was like watching their own deaths over and over. When Anko stopped it, she saw that only Teiwaya looked affected. And she was just a bit startled. Nothing more. She had did it on a guy in a bar once and she made him wet himself and pass out after he touched her ass. But these kids were looking unaffected by her killer intent. Well, it's basically a genjutsu that you focus to your eyes. It feeds on your negative emotions, be it pain, anger, or fury. It's sort of like a dojutsu that anyone can use, I guess. Although women have more of a knack for it than men, I've seen in my own experience. She explained how it worked, as they got it rather easily since they knew how to channel chakra through their eyes already. Teiwaya went first and Anko felt it. It was good, almost on par with hers. Gaara went next as Anko notices the eyes even change a bit, becoming pupilless and a little bit bloodshot. She wasn't sure it was because if he was a Jinjulke, but it made her frightened. That was good. Naruto went last as Anko figured he wouldn't get it so easily. While good, his chakra control was the worst out of the three of them. And not to mention he was always so happy. As the mood quickly changed, his eyes became red with slits in them. Anko felt her very soul shiver in fear as she stepped back, as she looked like she was looking into the eyes of the Kyuubi itself. Seeing that, Naruto light up as Anko panted as she looked at him. For one to be so happy and then just to turn around and do that. Good. That was good, Naruto, she said, as she called him by his real name. If he could do that to her, then he could do a lot worse to others that weren't so experienced. Given the fact that Anko was an interrogator. Yeah, so he could do a lot worse to others then. Alright, you seem to get it, but kid, don't use that technique on somebody. Even if it's for practice unless they're the enemy. Okay? Alright, I'm giving you guys a day off, she said. Go mess about her. Whatever kids do nowadays. Hey, you know you're like 4 years older than us, right? Anko smiled at that. She just needed to see the irritated part of him that was fun, to wipe out that scary look a moment ago. But guys, if the end steps are right here, if you want to see the next part, so do like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. Remember, share to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also go ahead and check out the brand new episode over on Anime King 3 of What If Naruto's Betrayed by Hagoromo. And I also post a brand new episode of What If Naruto had a new training trip partner that will change everything, so go ahead and enjoy that as well. But I'm out for now, see you guys soon, peace.